You're listening to a 4x4 Radio Network podcast.
Hey Jeepers, welcome to On the Trail with Kevin and Scott video. This is a very special video that we've promised you in our podcasts, and we have a guest here, both the guest and the driver. I'm Kevin, the engineer.
I'm Scott. I'm the slapstick parts guy that now has instructions. Those of you on video can see I have instructions now. And as we always share, while we will share what worked for us and what was what didn't, remember it's up to you to do what you want to your Jeep. So
Yeah, and Scott's sitting in the sun, so he's looking all squinty and whatnot.
Yeah.
Between us is the actual guest, and this is Bob. Bob is the owner of the mystical LS Swapped YJ that we've talked about in probably 5 or 6 episodes of the show.
Oh, yeah.
We've gotten a lot of requests from everybody. We want to see the Jeep. And Bob has finally agreed to come in, and we're going to do a little interview with him. Actually, Scott's going to do the interview since
That's
I was a
right.
participant in the build. And as we go through it, this video, the Jeep's in the background, we will have images of the processes, images of the results, and a bunch of neat information about it should you want to build yourself a LS Swapped YJ.
Absolutely.
So, Scott, I'm turning the mics over to you. You're in control now.
Well, yeah, that's
Please, people,
wonderful.
belt your seat.
Yeah.
Take a safe, stay a safe distance away
please
from the
wait.
TV monitor.
Please wait till the show and/or video comes to a complete stop. Keep all hands and arms in the vehicle at the times while the show is in motion. Shouldn't we call it In the Yard with Kevin, Scott, and Bob and the YJ? Because
I don't see a yard. Do you see a yard?
well,
See woods in the background.
the magic. What you don't see behind us is a KFC and a McDonald's, kind of like the pyramids, you know. But anyways.
No, not quite. But yes, we are at one of our haciendas that borders the woodlands. So.
Yes,
Yeah.
but so again, it's in the sounds of nature, like the pressure washer and everything else. So, but while we will go on with this, I'm just wanted to say thank you for having you and the Jeep on the show.
Oh, it's great.
Because again, a lot of emails, 1,000 questions usually, but. The one thing I wanted to, kind of ask, I'm going to go off script for real quickly, and it might be in here if I'm jumping ahead.
No, you're fine.
So everyone always has the keyboard warriors are, well, why did you choose an LS compared to let's say a diesel motor or something, or just turbocharging an inline 6? Why did you want the LS? Why did you want the V8?
A couple of reasons. One, the R28 is what I looked at, the Cummins, and we're looking at $9,000, for the motor itself.
Right.
Novak, they've been around for over 50 years putting, motors in Jeeps, and I do like the LS. I think I'm not a big Chevy fan, but the LS motor is probably one of the most,
You got to give credit where credit's due.
Yeah, one of the most swapped in packages that's in the modern market today.
Yeah, that's kind of like the old joke. Everyone puts a Cummins diesel out of a Dodge truck and something else, and why? Because the truck around it rotted.
Yeah.
Commence Dodge hate mail, and I'm a Mopar guy, and I'm the one saying that. So, but just out of curiosity, though, how did you get into Jeeps? I mean, why a Jeep? Because that's one of our first shows. Was it the mystique of the top off and getting rained on and the sunburn on your head, or? What?
I wasn't a big Jeep guy. Now, I liked four-wheeling. I was stationed out in Nevada and Las Vegas, and I had a Nissan 4x4.
Okay.
We used to go up in the mountains and see how far we can get up in the snow and over top. But I think back then, there was a CJ.
Right.
And one guy had a CJ, Ford Bronco, full-size, Toyota trucks, Nissan trucks. It was just a conglomeration of people, and I liked the four-wheeling. It was a lot of fun.
Cool.
And I did a little bit of that in the Philippines when I was stationed over there. And I've always had a four-wheel drive truck. So what I did was, my buddy actually, he inherited a 95 YJ. And it was fun. I liked it. I liked the simplicity of the Jeep. I thought it would be a lot simpler to build and put together. So, I found one over in basically this Deltona area. DeLand, I think it was. DeLand, actually.
Okay.
Probably paid a little bit too much for it. It was a little rough, Maryland Jeep. But that's where I started.
Well seasoned with salt.
Yeah.
Well, that's a question. It was a Maryland Jeep. Was there a crab cake or something like that in the glove box? I need to know. Oh wait, is it lobster? I
Rust.
can't.
No, that's Maine would be more the
Okay.
lobster.
Then I
You
can't
were
make the-
correct.
yeah.
The blue crab or bluefin crab cakes are from Maryland.
Okay, I got something right. 'Cause it was either that or a khakis joke. You know, did it come with khakis or khakis? You know, but sorry.
Sorry.
That's gonna. Please send all your hate mail to attention Kevin at On the Trail.
Yeah.
So you know, as you said, as purchased in the condition. I mean, obviously, you know, you said it was a little salty. You know, I mean, like, how long have you had the Jeep?
A little over 4 years now.
4
It
years?
took 4 years for me to get it like this.
Okay, now did you do what was the first thing you purchased besides a tank of gas?
Was probably the steering. When I drove it home, you know, the steering wheel was, you know, it's one of these numbers where you're trying to keep it straight going down the road.
It's kind of like doing a slalom in a battleship. You know?
Exactly.
it ain't happening.
Yeah, and then I had a lift kit put on it. One of the local off-road shops put a slip yoke eliminator in it for me. That one I did not do myself. I put 2.5-inch super lift on it and some 32-ish tires with the same type of rim that I've got right now.
I got you.
And I drove it around like that with the 4-cylinder and 5-speed.
Yep, I was going to ask you, was it 4-cylinder or
Yeah,
6-cylinder?
4-cylinder. Couldn't get out of its own way.
Okay, so they were tired squirrels, not angry squirrels.
Yeah, because everyone's always said that, you know. But if you would have, if I wish I still had my YJ. If people would have to drive my YJ, you'd be like, well, this isn't so bad. Again, 488 geared. Again, it would run out of lungs on the highway real quickly. But you know, up to 55, it was sporty.
I couldn't even go into 5th gear. I had to stay in 4th gear most of the time,
Wow.
unless I was going downhill.
Gotcha. Well, before I changed up my engine, I had so much bad blow by. Literally, I was killing every mosquito when I went to work.
Yeah.
I mean, it was one of those cars you see go down the road with white smoke billowing out of it, and it's like,
Actually, the motor ran pretty good. I mean, I changed all the sensors and did everything to it, but the motor ran pretty good. Started right up. Just did some maintenance to the motor just to keep it running good, and other than that, I just drove it like that.
Now, you said you had the Battleship steering. So, other than the Battleship steering, what were your other first challenges you had?
I didn't like. I wanted the axles were Dana 30s and 35s,
Right.
and you know I heard such bad things about them, but would I really break them with a 4-cylinder? I kind of doubt it, but I don't know. That was just the start. I knew I wanted to buy it and modify it, and that's what I started doing. So, the power and the steering that was the main thing.
And power steering.
Yes, it did have power steering.
Well, again, that's one of the things Kevin and I talk about is, and we talked a little bit before the show, is that, you know, when you start building things, it's like, you know, when you go, again, you know, on the internet, people say, you know, you need, you know, the 42-inch stickies,
Right.
you know, the Dana 80s and the supercharged nitroglycerin V8s and stuff like that. And, you know, I've shared that video many times on the Facebook page of that guy out there in Moab with the, what was that?
The M38 with the regular unidirectional tires from the military, the 4-cylinder and the Borg Warner T case in it, and just kind of puttering along and going places everybody else was breaking axles and smoking things.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, kids, you wheel with what you have. Okay. So, sorry, trying not to trip on my soapbox on the way out. So when you bought it, obviously you had the 4-cylinder. Now, what were your initial plans? Like, what were the things you wanted to do? What was your dream build?
I wanted to build a good trail rig.
Okay.
You know, something that if I do get into a little trouble, I want to be able to get out of it. It's not a rock crawler. It's, you know, I just want something that, you know, I can do some hills, I can do some trails. If I get into something tight, hopefully it'll get through it.
And you also wanted the heavy right foot action.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, but let's just be honest. And the cool thing is when he started up earlier, it's a sleeper. Like these two right here are kindred spirits because there's some burble behind that exhaust, but I can definitely tell if I was behind you, I'd be like, no, that's not a 4-cylinder.
No. But it is hard to keep your foot out of it now. It really is.
Well, especially like I passed a 18-wheeler on the way here, and I goosed it, and rev limiter went up and went, oh, there went $9.
Yeah.
So, anyways, but you know, obviously, you know, the 4-cylinder is anemic, like we talked about. What was one of your main reasons for, you know, besides the desire? What was your main reason to choose a powertrain swap compared to, you know, just, you know, getting another Jeep? Because a lot of people say, well, just sell it and get a new vehicle or whatever.
Or power adders, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually tried everything. I even got the throttle body for
that's right.
a 6-cylinder, and tried that. And I tried the new jets or the new injectors.
Did you do the firepower ignition?
I did not.
I did that.
It did. So
did
all
that
of
work
that,
out?
I put all that in there, and it ran horrible. It was terrible. And I took it all out, And I says, all right, I got to do something with this thing. And that's when I started doing my research and looked on the internet, watched a lot of YouTubes.
So you basically, as Kevin and I say, you did your research.
Yes.
Cool. So I can hear the typing now with this question. So you decided to go with a kit.
Yes, I did.
Now, there are, again, people out there that say you can do it for like, $3,000 with an old running Oldsmobile. Why did you, what made you decide to do the Novak kit? Obviously you did a lot of research and you saw that people, I'm sure there was videos on there about, getting that junkyard core and rebuilding it and doing all that kind of stuff. Clearly you have some skill. Why? What was your whole choice behind
I didn't want to go through rebuilding a motor. I've never rebuilt a motor. Now, I've done heads and head gaskets and stuff like that, though. Never rebuilt a motor. And I do have a friend south of here that's his business. He does rebuild motors, but that's not cheap either.
No.
And you don't know what you're getting from a junkyard. Maybe good, maybe not that good. So I decided to get a rebuilt one from Novak. I did my research. Like I said, they've been doing it for years and years. The simplicity of the kit is, and Kevin will tell you, he did one of these in a CJ, and sometimes the cost of this and that, and I needed this. Novak did all that for you.
They did.
And Kevin will tell you, it's almost, you're looking at probably within a few dollars of.
It really ends up, well, the 6.0 cost more than the Novak kit by the time it was done to make it a drivable rig. That's just, people can argue and type the nasty emails that they want, but the bits and pieces of doing a complete a la carte junkyard build ran in more than what Novak charges for a package deal.
Yeah.
By a significant amount.
No one ever thinks of that brother and sister that show up when you do a project. That's Anita and Murphy. Like, I need that.
Yep.
I needed
And
this.
Murphy's Law.
I needed that. And Murphy. So if you can keep those two troublemakers from being out of your build as much as possible, that's kind of important because, again, when sometimes when I get at work, I'll get a repower situation, and it won't even come with engine gaskets.
Oh.
It won't even come with a master gasket kit. So now all of a sudden, you've priced out that engine of, $5,000 to the customer. Oh yeah, now we need coolant, we need oil, we need a filter, we need this, we need that. And next thing you know, that's another $5,000 on top of that. So that's why they always say, if you're going to plan an engine swap, if you think it's going to cost $7,000, add another $7,000.
Yeah.
Because the Anitas will get you. They'll get you good. Yep. And so you went with the Novak kit. Now, obviously you chose it for those reasons, but aside from the Novak kit, anything else you wanted to do while you had the Jeep down? Because I know you talked a little bit about when the engine was out, you did some cleaning up and.
Oh, absolutely. I completely. Well, for one thing, it was a rust bucket. I had to do a lot of rust repair, floor, some panels on the side, fenders, tailgate. Those were all replaced. So when I pulled the motor out, which actually came out fairly easy, took it up to Ron's shop, Red Scorpion Fabworks, and he let me do a lot of the stuff there. So I pulled the motor, I took it back home. Luckily I have a tow bar, so I was able to tow it back and forth. And then I started cutting the motor mounts out and cleaning up the frame and cleaning up the back of the firewall because it was still the original teal type color of the Jeep.
Right.
So once I got all that done, and then I took it back to Ron's shop, and then we measured the motor mounts, and Novak said, I believe it was 29 1/8, and a lot of people test fit them. Yeah, we didn't test fit it. We just burned them in at 29 1/8. I was hoping they knew what they were doing, and sure enough, it.
And I'm going to comment, folks, that was so close that the transfer case, which has the actual transmission mount on it, dropped into the original holes on the skid plate.
Yep.
We didn't even have to drill new holes.
Yeah, and even then, when you talked about the bodywork, Kevin showed me pictures right here underneath the Jeep with the front.
And we'll put them up on the screen.
Yep, that you repaired all that rust and the rest of the other stuff you did. I saw the pictures of where you burned in the motor mounts and everything else. So if you don't mind, because the kit, and I think Kevin even had, do we have pictures of the complete kit
Yes.
in the box?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, at the time of this being recorded, which is in 2022, how much roundabout was the price of the?
The whole kit was, I think it was right around $14,000.
Okay.
That was shipped.
That was shipped.
Yep.
Okay.
Everything done. I'm talking wire harness cut. What? It needs 6 wires.
And we needed 6 wires to make it fire.
Yep, 6 wires. to
And
make
they
it fire.
even included the adapter to the transfer case, the motor mounts. the alternator. You know, it really
Everything.
was.
It was almost turnkey.
almost turnkey.
as
The,
close as you can get when doing a brand.
digital Dakota converter.
Yeah, the converter for the tachometer.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that when talking with Kevin, and Kevin has talked about it on the show, is that, you know, you can, a lot of the research and hard work is already done for you.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yep.
And that kind of, it actually, like for me, and again, come on, show 138, my lift is still in the storage unit. But, so the biggest problem for me is the fear of jumping into a big, huge, because you're like, that's an open heart swap. That you're going to dive deep into that. And if half the research is done for you, the instructions are there, you know, the planning that you already did, that should take a lot of the fear and give you that confidence to tackle that. Because that is a major, you're not just bolting on something.
Oh, I was still scared.
Yeah, but you know what?
Yeah.
We're missing one other thing that Novak gives.
What's that?
And it's completely intangible.
Yes.
And it's 1-800 Novak.
Yeah.
And they got on the phone. Bob could call in, hand the phone to me. They would talk to me as we were doing connections and share their knowledge and experience from a whole business in conversions.
Nice.
And didn't cost them a penny extra for
Yeah.
that.
Kudos to Jeff at Novak.
Yeah.
And when you called, they transferred you to the wire guy. 'Cause you said,
Yep.
I think one of your questions was, is it run off of ground or was it run off
Yeah.
of 12 volts? Something simple like that. The computer reflashed. Everything was done. And a beautiful crate, everything labeled.
It really was.
Radiator,
We'll put a picture
fans,
up here again.
You know, everything rebuilt. All the new radiator and fans was already put together.
Well, that's one of the things when I looked under the hood of the Jeep, is from the hardware. You know, if you didn't clean the hardware, you replaced it with new hardware. I mean, it's literally, it looks as close to a new Jeep. But any special planning for tools, work areas, or processes you weren't comfortable doing yourself? Did you that's when you brought in Kevin, and obviously you called 1-800 Novak.
Right.
But for the most part, you know, that obviously took some planning too, didn't it?
Two things that I was worried about. One was wiring. And Ron introduced me to Kevin because he did the wiring on the CJ when they put the Chevy motor in it. And he said, sure. And he already knew what he was doing with the wiring. I mean, I would have struggled. I would have probably been able to get it done with a little help, but it wouldn't have been as perfect as how he did it and neat looking. And he, you know, he cut out wiring, which I would not have done, that was not needed anymore.
Right.
I mean, just got rid of.
And folks, that's what I was talking about on the shows, is having the wiring diagram, both from Novak and the one from this year YJ. We were able to go, well, that went with the 4-cylinder ignition. That went with the 4-cylinder, you know, this and that. And we took that out rather than leaving a rat's nest, which is a potential spot for future problems.
Yeah.
Contrary to Bob's humbleness, I expect I probably could have handled him and given him a half an hour's education on how to use the wiring diagram, and he would have been fine because he took off with it and ran with it. And, you know, his attention to detail, you know, I appreciate the compliment on the wiring, but when I see what you did with the rest of the work, yeah, you'd have been fine on the wiring. You may have worked a little slower, but you would have been fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wiring I was nervous about, and believe it or not, the shifter. It came with the 4-wheel drive shifter. It's their kit, their design on that. But picking a shifter, I could have picked several. I picked a low car. I was worried about mounting it.
That's a transmission, folks, a transmission shifter.
Yeah, the transmission shifter. I was reading on the internet, blogs. I wish I had a longer cable. I wish, you know, this, that. And I'm like, oh, geez. So I ordered the one that was for the transmission that came with this was the 4L60E. And the cable was just the right size. I mean, it just came right out of the shifter, wrapped around the transfer case, and went right in. Probably one of the hardest things about that, Kevin came over and actually helped me adjust it. I had it
Making
in.
sure park was park.
Yeah.
That's kind of important.
Yeah.
It was just having trouble finding the low gears, but actually, come to find out, a lot of that was the shifter itself. I just didn't know how to use the shifter. You don't use the button for the first and second, but there's a button on the top that you use for pretty much everything else.
It's got an interesting gate structure on the low car shifter, folks.
Yeah.
And if you ever have one, you know what we're talking about.
We got a little ahead of ourselves. I did ask.
Sorry.
I did want to ask you this: when you went to place the order from Novak, Now, did you say, hey, this is what it's going in, this is what I want? Was that pretty easy to go in? Did they talk you through it? Did they ask questions?
Yes, he did. And believe it or not, this is what sold me also. Jeff, that I talked to, had a YJ with an LS in it.
Okay.
Okay, so...
And that plays into later questions.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, it was either an LS or a 350 that he did, but he had a YJ that he had a Chevy motor in it.
The thing I think is interesting, being a parts guy, because like sometimes, and again, this can happen, and again, it is a fear point for me is, okay, I've ordered my engine here, I got to order the radiator from over here, I got to order this from over here, this, and then all of a sudden it's that one box you forgot at the house, and you're trying to put all this together, and next thing you know, you're missing it. So now when this Novak kit came, like you said, everything was in the one crate.
We didn't have to do anything. Well, we did hoses.
Yeah.
Mainly the hoses to hook up, and that was a nightmare. But
And when he says a nightmare, it's just because if you've ever walked into a parts department, hint, hint, nudge, nudge,
Yeah.
and looked at the rack of hoses and going, well, I need this shape, and it goes from here to here, and the guys look at you and go, welcome
kind of
behind the
car is it?
counter, go
Yeah.
pick a hose.
See, that's a good parts store.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I'd always do. I'm like, okay, obviously, let's just go take a look and let's see what you got, and we would do that. It's.
And I guess part of it, let me ad lib, was part of the challenge was the fact that neither Bob nor I wanted to plumb it up with crinkle hose.
no.
Yeah. No, I hate that flex hose.
Yeah.
But the thing too is like a lot of people go, well, what kind of what's the engine? What's kind of car? No, you don't understand. I'm doing something custom, one off.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I can't help you. Well, yeah, you can. You just walk there. Like the numbering on the belt, the 95 K6.
Yeah.
That's a 95-inch belt. K is 6 ribs. So you just run a piece of tape, go and measure it. Okay, I need a 97-inch belt. Okay, well, how big? Do you have room in your tensioner? Because I got a 95-inch belt, K5. That's good parts knowledge, or saying, hey, let me take you back there. Let's go look and see what we got. So I'm glad at least they were able to do that for you.
Oh yeah, they were able to help, and
Yeah, I made some mistakes. I ran the hose across the top of the radiator. Oh, that's perfect. It fits really good. I didn't realize we didn't put the intake system in. It's like,
we had nowhere to put the intake on.
yeah, the intake wouldn't go in. It's like, all that work finding the hose, and so basically then I had to take that hose off. I had to put the intake on. Now I got to find a hose that comes up, routes over the intake, and back down into the radiator.
And which we found out later is actually how GM did it in most other vehicles.
Nice.
You have this hose comes out of the radiator and then does this climb the mountain and go down the mountain.
Yeah.
Now, did you install it right away? Because I know you said you did some body work and do all that. Did you plan it out? Did you basically did you store the kit for a little bit, or was this like I'm going to do this in a weekend or 6 months or?
I didn't have there was no real plan. I did order the kit. The kit came in. I had nowhere to store it. Luckily, I met Shane from Drive Shaft Specialist.
Okay.
He allowed me to store it there because Ron had the shop there before he moved into his other shop. So it was very nice of him to let me store it. We even uncrated it. He took pictures. We looked at the wire harness, everything, and then I decided, you know what, I got to get this done.
Yeah.
So I pulled it up to Ron's. I said, Ron's time, let's pull this motor, and he had some spare time. I helped Ron at the shop quite a bit, and he allowed me to bring the Jeep in. It sat there for a week. We had it in and out in a week running. Actually, we had it running, and I think the motor was in. We started at 9 o'clock in the morning. Was it 9:30, 10 o'clock? The motor was in.
Yeah. It was
And by Wednesday morning,
it was fired.
it was fired up.
All right, I got it. I want to make sure I don't get too much. So when you did your old powertrain, what was that like?
The old powertrain?
Yeah.
It came out, if that's what you mean. Did it come out easy? I mean, it came out fine, ripping the wires.
It's kind of fun how therapeutic it is taking things out.
Yeah.
And then if you're anything like me, you go, oh, I forgot to make notes and I forgot to do this. And
Yeah, everything was replaced. So, the neat thing about it is I got basically 2 different circuits in the Jeep now.
Yeah.
I've got a motor circuit that just applies to the motor only. And then I've got your fuse box over here for fuel pump and turn signals and lights and stuff like that. So it's completely separate.
And that Novak did what we also did on the CJ5.
Oh.
They provided a separate fuse and relay box for the engine.
Yep.
Which makes it very simple to connect.
so it's almost like a standalone in a way.
Yeah.
It's very much a standalone. It's the go home and the play boxes. If you bust the play box, you can still go home.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, it's a quick question because you talked about the one challenge with the other hose, with the intake. Any other change, like exhaust manifolds? Any surprises that came up that was a challenge that you're able to overcome.
Yeah.
Besides that,
The only thing, putting the motor in went very smooth. We did have to remove the passenger side header.
okay,
By the way, it did come with ceramic headers.
Nice.
Nice drop down, straight ceramic headers, which cleared everything just fine. Which I've watched some YouTubes that whatever header they had did not clear the motor mounts, and they either had to adjust things or notch things, which I didn't have to do any of that here. So we removed the header. The motor went in. Tommy helped me put the header back on. Went smooth. I took it to a local exhaust shop that I had them. I told them what I wanted. They've even supplied the down, because they use those band clamps, I think it was. Supplied
The leader pieces of pipe that
Yes.
come off of the headers.
nice.
Came with the Novak kit, ready for fitting up to, what were they, 2 1/4, 2.5?
2.5.
2.5 inch. So it's got a pretty healthy exhaust system.
So they routed the exhaust like I wanted,
Yeah.
because I looked at others, how they did theirs, and they routed them down around the front of the oil pan,
Okay,
and then joined up with the other one. It's not what I expected. He just did some mandrel bent pipe.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have had the kit done where it's all stainless smooth and TIG welded and all that, but that's not what I got. I mean, could I change that later on in the future? I can. Does this work fine? It does.
okay.
Do I need the fancy stuff? I want to get it out in the woods and get it dirty.
Yeah, but every now and then you want what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The heart wants what the heart wants. Like, I really want to get my lift installed. So, speaking of challenges, Kevin, you mentioned something about the transmission case or the T case mounted up perfectly in the same holes. Even though you did the correct measurements and do all that. So that was a nice positive. Any other positive that you found from the installation that went smoothly and beyond your expectations?
We had to rip the transfer case apart a couple. I upgraded the transfer case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, speaking of let's go to the transmission. I ordered. I think Novak had 3 different levels of transmissions.
Okay.
Okay, you had a 20 or 2001, a 2200, and a 2400. I'm estimating what it was then. So I picked the medium, which it was beefed up 4L60. What they did to it, so it'd be able to handle the power, which it's not putting out that much power.
It ain't half bad, but
No.
yeah, I know what you're saying. It's not a supercharged or nitrous blown.
It's not a nitro methane
I
funny car.
believe we're at 244 foot-pounds of torque
Yeah.
and 220 horsepower.
Yeah, but
Somewhere- that's at
folks,
the
that's at the rear wheels,
wheels with these
which
35s.
is So that's significantly less than what the crank's putting out. He's over 3, talking to the tuner, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, from my perspective, electrically, just a few questions with the Novak kit, and they were unusual because I was trying to do the trick that we did, which we'll talk about, but we've talked about on the show, of making the Jeep Dash work with the LS computer system and sensor systems. And so I had weird offbeat questions like, is this a switched power or switched ground? Is signal on a ground side? Is it on the power side? And hats off to Novak. They were willing to explain all of that.
Nice.
Probably the single biggest challenge from my perspective in the wiring world was his speedometer.
Oh, yeah.
And it boils down to, folks, that the LS has an internal drive for an electronic speedometer through the computer system, which actually works. The computer knows how fast you're going. They set the gear ratios and that at Novak. And that was well. But we wanted the electromechanical dash that's in this year YJ to work. And really wasn't going to be between the two. And we ended up utilizing existing Jeep parts that we were able to salvage and a few other pieces. And then the transponder that we had to adjust the signal to bring that dash function to life. So that was more of not a necessity, but a luxury, because we wanted to do something that everybody said you couldn't do, and that was to LS swap a Jeep, a YJ Jeep, and keep the dash stock.
Yep. All the gauges work tremendously.
Idiot lights work.
Well, since we're a good segue, by the way, since we're on the different, systems,
Yeah.
cooling system, any issues with cooling?
No, the radiator, it's a custom-built radiator.
Okay.
Here's the neat thing what Novak did, and I'm not trying to put plugs out there for Novak, but they thought of everything. I mean, they've been
Yeah.
doing this for a while. The cooling system it was kind of neat that we got the analog gauge to work, because all they did was provide a port on the head that I was able to screw my YJ temperature sensor into.
Nice.
And run the original YJ temperature wire to the gauge. So
Yeah, and the other side head had the port that ran to the LS computer.
Yeah. So it's
see-
reading too. The computer's reading the temperature and your gauge is reading the temperature.
See, and makes it easier, doesn't it?
It does.
And they did the exact same thing with the oil. They put a little adapter on the oil filter mount that the oil sensor off the YJ screwed right into their hole and went right through the wire. And basically, I think you did have to disconnect it and reconnect it just to.
Yeah, to get it through the network
Yeah, we had to move
properly.
it a
But yeah,
little
they really did provide a lot of flexibility in how they prepped the engine kit. You could have easily left the plug-in and run just digital system off of it, and converted the dash like we did on Shane's YJ, but you don't have to. No. You can work with both systems. And that's really the secret here, is that somebody thought this through up front.
Yeah, well, when you're talking about the oiling system, because that's, obviously the fueling system, same fuel. You run the YJ fuel pump in there, or do you have to change something
The
out?
YJ, he told me it would work, and it did. Yeah. The YJ, I believe, puts out 58 PSI.
No, actually, it's 47 on the YJ pump, and they didn't go to 58 until the second generation TJ. But 47, which is from the YJs, as soon as they put electric fuel pumps in them, the earlier ones, of course, were mechanical, up to, I'm going to think it's 2,000 in the TJs is a 47 PSI pump system, which is admittedly on the low end of an LS. But according to the tuner guy we went to, he was not showing any fuel starvation issues.
And, one of my worries when you were talking about that just reminded me, I was worried about the fuel pump.
Okay.
I didn't know if the fuel pump was going to push on the pressure. It did. I didn't have to change anything on the fuel pump. Novak kit came down with 2 fuel lines, one with a filter on it and one that was an intake and one return. And I put double clamps on it just to make sure everything was good. It clamped it right to the existing
Fuel supply
lines.
and return lines.
And boom, and it's got a fuel pressure regulator up there. So if it was over pressure, it regulates it. That was super simple. I was so worried about that when I bought this kit, and it turned out it was.
I would tell you, he almost passed out when we turned the key on that first hot start, and she lit off in half a crank.
Yeah.
The man just about collapsed because he's like, oh my God, it works.
We're actually getting this thing together, and it's working.
Right. And that's the fun part when you see everything come together. You talk about the system, the planning, the work, and it does take money. Let's just be honest.
Oh yeah.
But again, Kevin having that experience with the other V8 swap, sometimes it's nice to have that package already done for you. Because again, the engineering's been done. People sometimes balk at why things are so expensive compared to a cheaper model. It's in the engineering. It's in the care and the materials the things are made with. You said a one-off custom radiator, basically.
Yep. That bolted right into the front clip.
Wow.
While I had the front clip off, I cleaned it all up and repainted the inside black to make everything look nice. But then I just fabbed my own out of Lowe's aluminum bar stock.
To mount his
where
transmission cooler.
Yeah, transmission cooler and
Which they provided as well.
That's one thing I really want to byline here. The shifter assembly. If you look inside the Jeep, folks, you're going to see basically what looks like a manual shift, but it's actually an automatic. And he kept the look of the manual shift. And you
Right down to the factory boots.
the factory boot still fits, and that was kind of cool, man. That was really neat when I saw that, because when I saw the underhood first, I saw the transmission dipstick, and then I looked inside, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, he's messing with me in one way. It's either an automatic disguised to look like a manual, or the other way around.
Yeah.
But why would you put a transmission dipstick in a manual? Because then you're really messing with people. The poor guy at Jiffy Lube's gonna be like, what the,
No, it was a 5-speed, and I wanted an automatic, so I had to get up there and delete the clutch pedal.
Yep. And he did that exceedingly well.
Yep. It was more in my head that I was worried about than it actually was to do. If you're fairly mechanically inclined, it wasn't bad. It is a drive-by-wire, so the gas pedal, I do some modification on that.
right? Well, that's what I was going to say. The next is you kind of like you made your own bracket and you kind of went between your truck and the
Made his own pedal arm too.
pedal arm, just
Yep.
that way you can keep going back and forth to make sure it fit your foot the way you want it.
Yeah, and we have a picture of it that
Yeah.
they'll put up. And basically, I just cut the arm off at the top and cut it off at the bottom because it did have a spring-loaded little pedal. And then I just fabricated my own arm, and then I actually drilled holes and bolted it. So
And
I was
tested
able
it
to
with the bolts.
Yeah, I bolted together.
Nice.
So I was able to because the arm came out from the original one. It ran right into the transmission tunnel, and there's no way it was going to work.
Yeah.
There's
Right.
no way I could mount it. There was nowhere to put it. So I had to move it the opposite direction. So I just bent a piece of bar stock and bolted the top and bolted the bottom, and then I could adjust those to where I wanted it. I looked at my truck. Where's the pedal in my truck? Where's the pedal in my old Jeep?
Right.
You know, how far apart is it from the gas pedal to the brake? And then
Does
I
it hit
started-
the floorboard before the throttle hits the
Yes.
floorboard kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
And then once I got it adjusted, I ground it down to look nice. Brought it over to Kevin.
Yeah.
We welded it and painted it, threw it in, and you can't tell it's not really factory.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. That, I'm glad because that was one of the questions I had. Because making it all work, where bending the levers and trimming the floor panels, factory shift boot, marrying the new harness to the old. It sounds like you did a lot of, even with the Novak kit, you did a lot of your own forethought, for foreshadowing and thinking about it and planning. And doing these things because it literally looks like it came. Everyone keeps saying this with their own, the like different companies that do conversions. It looks factory. That looks like a factory YJV8.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there was such a thing.
Yeah.
I have to throw another bone to Novak, though, of something they put in the kit that was absolutely cool, is you have to bend your own transfer case lever to fit your system. And they give you a piece of bar stock to heat up and bend. But in addition to that, Bob, they give you your little baton.
Yeah, rubber with metal in, so it's like a coat
soft
hanger
metal.
with rubber around it, so it looks like a piece of bar stock that, you bend that and
Bend
see
by
where it
hand.
needs to be, and then you match that to your bar stock and heat it up and bend it.
Nice.
Which I think we got pictures of that also.
Yeah, so we bent this little floppy. There's so many wrong things I could say right there, but this moldable shift lever. How's that, Scott?
Yeah,
that should keep us off the
the no list.
no list, and then you just bring that over and copy that with a vise and a torch, and just heat and bend until okay, and then you go back and fit it. And his goal was to have it come up the same boot as the original shifter. So as you say, when you look in there, not only did we put the transmission where the manual shift would have been, we put the
Four-wheel drive lever.
Novak transfer case lever in the same spot as Jeep did.
It looks factory. it tripped me out. It really did. I was like, what?
And since we're talking about the Novak, the other thing they did was when I called them, and they were so good that he goes, all right, what gears are you running? What tire size do you plan on running? What do you want it to do? I said, I want it to be able to go 70 mile an hour down the highway. I want it to be able to go to the beach. I want to take it, drive it down the highway. And he goes, all right, you're going to be doing 70 mile an hour at 6,100 RPM. And I tell you, he's almost dead on.
Oop, sorry. We had a slight paper failure there, kids. Let's see here. But see, so now, well, okay, so is that where you wanted to be at for the highway, or do you mainly trailer it?
No, I tow it.
You tow it?
I don't have a trailer. I've got a little tow bar. I've always had a tow bar for it. So if I
T
do,
case in neutral and go.
yep, I just put everything in neutral and pull it.
So everything considered, like we talked about, I don't know if we talked about the paint, but like you've Rhino line, or is it
Monster liner.
Monster
Monster
liner?
liner.
Yep.
Yeah, it's green with black accents all over it. How long did it take you to do the Monster liner?
Just the body work took me a while because I had to actually cut out underneath here on both sides. I had to cut out the floor on this side and a little section of floor on the other side. I made a template out of cardboard that fit in the hole. I traced it to a piece of Lowe's steel, same gauge. I don't have a welder, so I had a friend of mine tack it in. I ground it down and put a very thin coat of Bondo over it. And basically everything else was just roughing up. There wasn't any real dents in it. A couple small ones in the hood that I just popped out with a hammer. Sand it down, rough it up. They give you Scotch pads with the Monster liner. Of course, basically it's a bed liner that comes in multiple colors.
Right.
I picked the green. It was better than some of the other bright yellows or oranges they had that I wasn't going to go with. But So it wasn't that bad. Mask it off, and believe it or not, I rolled this on with the nylon roller that they provided with the kit.
Nice. It's nice and smooth.
Yep. Order extra rollers if you do that, because they end up deteriorating after a while. Then they'll leave little deposits, which I have a few, but I did that so I can go out in the woods and hit branches and stuff and not worry about scraping up a paint job.
And you also did the hard top too.
The hard top was just recent, just within the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I've got 3 hard tops, guys. I
So
found.
if you know anyone looking for one,
Yeah, I found 2.
He actually has a buyer for
Yeah, I got a buyer for one. So I found a CJ
top?
and a YJ hardtop. Both, well, the YJ wasn't bad, but the hinges were bad. But I've got a way to fix that.
Yeah.
I was going to fix that one up and do that one, and then Kevin.
I was just on Facebook Marketplace local here, and there was somebody cleaning out believe it or not, a horse trailer. And they
were horsing around.
And here was a top, and I got to be honest, it was immaculate condition.
Yeah.
He made it perfect, but it really was, and it was stored in an old horse trailer, and they only wanted $250 for it.
Amazing. I said,
and we ran over that afternoon in the pouring rain to make
Yep,
sure
pick it
we
up.
were first in line.
slid it in the back of his truck, strapped it down, we took off. But yeah, all I do, I painted the inside. I use Herculiner, like everything on my roll bar and some of those stuff. It's a spray-on bed liner. It's a hard finish. It's not soft. So I Herculined the outside of it. I had the windows tinted. I got new seals for it. Everything in it mounted right up. So now I've got the other 2. One, the CJ one, I'm going to cut and make the flat bimini top for it.
Like a safari top, you know.
Kind of like we were discussing this,
Yes.
kind of like how the new JLs are.
Yeah.
They're like legless, for
Yeah.
lack of better terms. Any AC or heat in the vehicle? Or
There's definitely heat.
Okay.
There's
More
no
heat
AC.
than you ever could want.
So,
Take the doors off, and that's your air conditioning.
so that's a slow no on the air conditioning.
Well,
Gotcha.
you have to understand that the YJs never came with built-in air. It was always an underdash unit. And the LS actually does have the mount for a factory compressor. So it could be installed if he chooses to. And
Yeah, there's aftermarket kits that nice little unit about this big will fit under that dash, and
Yep.
I just have to go get the compressor from a junkyard.
Yeah.
And a evaporator or whatever, and throw it in there. I could AC it.
Yeah.
This top is going to be for winter use only. I don't like running with the top on. We discussed that. I like running with the top off. This is what I wanted it for. I want to take it to the woods, the beach. If it rains, I can put the soft doors on with the vinyl windows, and at least the front section will be dry.
Right.
And other than that, it comes off, and that's the way I like running around.
Sweet.
I've always been a motorcycle guy. I ran dirt bikes in Pennsylvania when I was a kid, strip mines through the woods, and down here, it's just too dangerous. I'm not going to get another bike. I would like to have a nice cruiser to go around in. So this with the doors and windows off is my cruiser, but a lot safer.
Yeah.
On the road.
Well,
and now you can get out of the way of people in traffic that are doing crazy things in front of you.
Yeah. So let's. So obviously you got the winch in the front bumper, and the front bumper's kind of cool because you just basically cut down the factory bumper.
I wanted to keep the Jeep as stock looking as possible. I like the looks of the stock Jeep. I didn't want to modify it, and people put their touch to it and different high-speed bumpers and everything. So I just cut it down to make it a little narrower. I used believe it or not, Harbor Freight winch mount, but I did fabricate some plates with a hoop on the front that leans forward just a little bit so I can put a light up on top of that.
There you go. I think they're called winch protectors. Ow! I just hit the mic stand.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the Stinger out front or the short Stinger?
No, the actually on the front of the Gladiator, that little bull bar. I
Yeah,
used to call
okay.
They're actually called a winch protector.
Oh.
I just learned that like 3 days
okay.
ago. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's kind of cool.
Okay.
But I guess to keep a tree branch or a marmoset from falling on it or something. I don't know.
I suppose.
So the same guy that I did buy some Genrite, what they call them, stanchions, that bolted in where the speakers go on each side, which allows you to weld a roll bar up to the existing roll bar because there's no roll bar in the front. Your windshield is your roll bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted my own real roll bar, so I got the Genrite stanchions and had a guy weld up a bar across, another one down, and then 2 right in the center here.
Nice.
So he's got full cage now.
Yeah,
So here comes the most important question, because I hear this and see this all the time. So you have all this going through a Dana 35 rear axle because, if I don't put my foot in it, it'll survive, right?
Yeah, that ain't working.
So we didn't really touch on the axles. What kind of axles you got?
That was one of the first things I did also. I just didn't like the 30 and 35. I read too many things about them. Not that the four-cylinder is going to break it, but I called East Coast Gear Supply. I'll throw kudos to the guys that do a good job, and they did for me. So I ordered a custom Dana 44 with thicker tubes, chrome moly axles, E-locker, and a disc brake kit.
Sound familiar?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep. So I wanted that. And I already had the slip yoke eliminator.
Right.
Shane at Drive Shaft Specialist did my drive shafts.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing you know, after I paid that bill off, I ordered the front one.
There
And
you
the
go.
front one was a little bit more, but I did order it with the, was it the gussets?
Yeah.
Beefed up. I did that. Same exact thing. Dana 44, custom tubes, chrome mollies, and E-locker in the front too.
You got rid of the CAD system too, the center axle disconnect. I
Yes.
saw that.
Yep. So that's all gone. So he said they're almost as strong as Dana 60s is what he told me.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's true, but
It's pretty close to it because the main weakness on the factory 44s was most of the manufacturer specified thin tubes and very skinny C knuckles, the outer C where the axle turns on. You look at the classic TJs, you'll see that outer C bracket that the ball joints mount in is Coke bottled on the upper arm, very narrow. And it's the same one whether it's a 44 or a 35 or a 30. They bend there. That's why the whole thing with the gusseting. And there are forged pieces that are much stouter, and his has.
yeah, it's pretty beefed up.
Nice.
Yeah.
So like any audio upgrades, anything else you did?
I did. I put a center console in. I didn't want the stereo out there since I'm not running doors and windows most of the time. I got rid of the stereo where the factory stereo goes, and I put it in the center console. I bought one of those, and I couldn't tell you what manufacturer it was. I don't remember at the time without looking at it in the catalogs. But I like the idea of having the center console with a closed door where you can lock.
Yeah.
So I can lock the center console, and the stereo is locked at the same time.
It's the same one I had on my YJ.
And it has an added benefit is that if it rains and your top's not on, you can close the door and it's still watertight for the radio.
Yep.
So you don't have the usual, what I've seen posted all the times now on the JLs and Gladiators. It rained and my radio doesn't work. What can I do? Buy a new one.
Fill the Jeep with rice and pray.
Yes.
So I put where the radio went, I put a nice switch panel. Of course, you need a phone charger, so I put a USB port, a cigarette lighter port for a air pump or whatever you need to use it for, and that came out really nice.
Radar detector
Yeah.
or the fuzz buster, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, he definitely gets a few raised eyebrows, and I will relate, and I did it on the podcast, folks, but this story's too good to be true, is we left the tuners. And as we left the tuners, we're out on a small business frontage road leading up to getting on the highway that was under construction. And he was kind of playing around and feeling it out, and we were in the right lane, and a Mustang, a late model Mustang, pulls up in the left lane. And we've got a short run before the merge. And the light turned green, and next thing I know, I'm pinned to the seat. Bob's feeling that new tune out.
Oh, yeah.
And he smoked a late model Mustang getting to the merge, because down in the bottom end where the torque comes on, that's where she's the strongest, and she leaped.
It's funny you talked about that. Remember how you pulled your front tire off the?
Yes.
I was making a U-turn on the way to the Florida Trail Team Challenge.
Yeah.
And I had the full lock, right hand turn or left hand turn, and I had to go, and I dumped the clutch. And all of a sudden, I hear bang as the front of the Jeep comes down. I'm like, did I just lift a tire?
Probably did.
I'm like, that was scary. I don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
It is a uncomfortable feeling when you have a wheel flying off the ground at that kind of speeds. Yes.
But
Let me touch on that a little bit. Okay, Novak did a basic tune on that. They deleted everything that didn't need to be there.
VATs, any of the interaction for like cruise controls and those kinds of things. That's all
Secondary
gone.
O2 sensor.
Yeah, secondary O2 sensors.
Now, they did send the kit with the secondary O2 sensor lines in case I needed them, but they turned them off, and he told me they turned them off. I do have the lines, which I have not taken off yet. There's still little things I've got to do.
yeah.
But it's a hobby. It's a project. It's fun. But anyhow, it came with a basic tune, and now I'm telling you, it ran phenomenal with that tune in it. It ran good, but it was out of a 2003 Chevy Avalanche, and that's a tune for a
2003 Chevy Avalanche.
So we did take it to the tuner, and how we found out about it is Ron was building that Jeep and took it to the tuner.
Yep.
I took it there, and basically what he did was he tuned it for a Jeep. He brought the torque band at a lower RPM, so I've got the torque now, instead of at a higher RPM, brought it down to more usable for a Jeep, on your low crawl stuff. So that was worth the money spent there. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. I did it because we just happen to have a tuner that's an hour away, and he's supposed to be very, very good.
Jeremy at Faster Proms, really knowledgeable guy to share his information and knowledge about how that affects the vehicle. And I still remember his one comment to you when you were looking at him and we were doing the pulls, and you made the comment about, well, how come I only hear one shift? And he says, well, because I'm doing the pulls in second gear.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what about third gear and fourth? And Jeremy looked at him and said, well, if we went to third gear, it'd be to 140 on the table. And I really don't want to be doing 140 on the table.
No.
He says, that's really not where a Jeep's.
Right.
So the point is, Jeremy understood the Jeep world as well as he's into the tuner, the drift cars, the supercharged Cadillacs. Anything.
He's well-rounded.
He's very well-rounded, but he understood when we said we're looking more for low-end torque and a smooth progression of power rather than a lot of cars have an abrupt, like a jump. If you accelerate, you feel them like people say, well, it feels like it caught its breath, and launched.
At launch, yeah.
And you don't really want that when you're off-road, because that leads to stuck and hitting things. So it was really nice for Jeremy to work with us and give us arguably one of the smoothest power curves. He just puts his foot in and you just feel it build.
Yeah, there's one thing about it. The first gear shift is kind of abrupt.
Yep.
It's very short. I mean, you get on the gas and next thing you know, it's shifting and you feel it shifting. Now, if you take it easy, keep your foot off, it'll shift a little smoother. But, if I'm on the trail, I'm probably in first.
Yeah.
And I'm not shifting like that. So,
Right.
Does that matter on the trail? No. If you don't want the abrupt shift, well, then just don't put your foot in it for the first part of the gas and you're fine.
Mm-hmm. So what's next on the agenda for the YJ?
I don't know. I'll see how it does.
Driving it, maybe off-roading it.
Driving.
You're
I'd
just
like to
gonna
drive
enjoy it.
I'm gonna enjoy it. I went to BDS, which, by the way, it was a funny story, in Coldwater, Michigan. So I just happened to have in-laws in Coldwater, Michigan. He's assistant police chief up there, and it's my wife's sister that he's married to. So I go up to Coldwater, and I bought there. A guy, believe it or not, and I'm from Butler, Pennsylvania, a Jeep shop there said, go with a BDS. I told him what I had. He goes, go with the BDS 6-inch. I went with the BDS 5-inch. And I got BDS springs, so we'll see how they do. If I can get a little bit of articulation and it works fine with the BDS springs, but I don't know if I'll have any problems. It's either going to be a spring over or it's going to be a coil over. If I go that far, that's going to be expensive.
Yeah.
That's going to be expensive.
So all things considered, would you do it again?
Yeah, probably. I don't know if I'd pick a YJ. I might pick a CJ because of the suspension. Mm-hmm. But I do like the old school Jeep. It is simple. They look good to me.
I gotta tell you, Bob, we go to a couple of those Jeep night events all you have to do is park the Jeep and open the hood and he's got a crowd.
Yeah.
It does bring attention, and because it comes in as a stealth roller and it's everybody, oh, that looks really nice. And he opens the hood and they're like, I didn't hear you come in.
Yeah. Not everything needs an aggressive bump stick.
Right.
Yeah. So
And it's what you commented on. It just looks like a new motor in a Jeep. I mean, it looks like it was made to be put there. I mean, it's just
It looks like it came factory.
Yeah, it's clean and neat. And I did all he did the neat wiring stuff, and I did the neat paint and clean up and all that stuff. So it both between the two of us, it came out really good.
It did. It came out really well. Anything else you guys, any tips you'd like to offer other people if they're thinking about doing this?
Look into Novak. It might save you some money. It was just a lot easier for me. I didn't want to go through the hassle of buying a junkyard motor and transmission and cut the wire harness and then find somebody. I wouldn't even be able to cut a wire harness down. Maybe that's easy for a lot of people. I've seen people do it on YouTube's. I didn't want to do it and then find somebody to reflash the computer. What radiator do I put in it? What do I do with this? To me, it was, even if I was a little worried about spending the money, but it was worth it to me.
Anything else you do different?
No, I think I like the way it turned out.
There you go.
I'm pretty
And I'll
happy.
chime in and tell you, folks, what he did that made this work. And if you're thinking this way, is he took the time before he undid the first bolt and figured out what he wanted. Nothing will cost you more than changing your plans midstream.
Yeah.
He chose a course. He did his homework. He did his research. He asked a lot of questions. He went to shops. He worked with shops to figure out what worked and what didn't. And then once he formulated his plan,
Yep.
we executed.
And the most important part is he did what he wanted.
Yeah,
Yep.
he did what he wanted.
I just had to take that big step. That was scary. It was
Yeah,
scary,
write
the
that
whole-
check.
Yep.
But then again, the stars in his eyes when the crate came and it was unloaded there, and he's like, "Did you go see it? Did you go see it?" But it was a lot of fun. And Bob, I want to tell you, thank you very much for inviting me to help you with it, because
Oh,
that was a blast.
Yeah, it was fun.
I'm almost sorry it's over.
Well, we got Slightly Altered coming up, and now I think I'm going to order one for the Gladiator. So on that note,
Well, folks, we appreciate your time, and we hope you enjoyed it and all the cutaway clips and pictures and stuff that shows the process and everything that went on. Bob has a one-of-a-kind YJ. I know there are other swapped YJs, but this one's his.
Yeah.
And it meets his wants and his needs. And he wanted to share it with you.
Yeah.
So, Bob, thanks again for sharing it with you.
yeah.
Well, I watched a lot of videos, and that's where I learned and what to do, what not to do, and hopefully this will give you an idea of if you ever want to do this to a TJ or a YJ, that there's opportunities out there. There's different places to go to, and that's just how I did mine.
Yep.
There you go. So if you normally listen to the show and you don't really watch some of the videos, I implore you to check out the video porn, because Kevin and I, especially Kevin, we're going to work on a lot on this video to make it something really truly special, to give the I guess the due diligence and the details that Bob did on his Jeep follows through to the video. So if you normally check it out audio, check it out on the video too.
Yep. And as we always say, I think it's about time to call it quits, lock ups, put the Jeeps in 4-low, and hit the trails.
And also, don't forget to take nothing but pictures, memories, and your trash when you leave the trail, because my pop-up timer just went, and I think I got a headburn. So on that note, we'll see you guys on the next show. Oh, my goodness, this is the April Fool's show. See, we didn't April Fool you. We actually did something we promised. Yay! So we'll catch you guys on the 15th.
Bye now.
Bye.
Take care.
Proceeding has been provided for entertainment only. Proper service and repair procedures are vital to the safe, reliable operation of all motor vehicles, as well as personal safety of those performing those repairs. Standard safety procedures and precaution, including the use of safety goggles and proper tools and equipment, should be followed at all times to eliminate the possibility of personal injury or improper service which could damage the vehicle or compromise its safety.
What he said. Thanks a lot for listening, guys. You guys have a great day.
Bye.
This has been a Bent Axle Media production.